Get off my bench, old man. I'm just sitting here, son. Don't call me son. Ha! Troy grabbed Clifton's collar and yanked him forward. Who the hell are you to think you're my father? One-eyed old rat? Let go of my shirt, please. Troy slapped the older man's face. He grabbed Clifton by the collar. You're driving me crazy, you stinking old man. Let me help you with the other eye so it's even. Don't say that. Troy released Clifton, turned to his men. Teach him a lesson. This stinking old black dog dares to talk back to me. They all cornered him. Clifton stood up slowly, every joint protesting. He looked at Troy. You sure about that, son? Troy had no idea who the man he had just attacked really was. This is the story of Clifton Ingram and the day they picked the wrong old man. Clifton Ingram had lived on Oakfield Road for decades. Same house, same porch, same cracked steps he never got around to fixing. The neighborhood had changed around him. New fences, new faces, new money creeping in from the east side. But Clifton stayed. He stayed because this was where Evelyn had planted her roses. And even though Evelyn had been gone for years, the roses still bloomed every spring. He moved slow in the morning. His left eye saw the world just fine. His right eye saw nothing at all. Hadn't since a fight long ago. A detached retina from a punch that should never have been thrown in a bout, that should never have happened. But that was a long time ago. Most people on Oakfield Road knew Clifton as the quiet old man who swept the sidewalk early and carried grocery bags for Mrs. Patterson. They didn't know about his professional fights. They didn't know about the middleweight belt in a shoebox under his bed wrapped in Evelyn's old scarf. They didn't know that the name the ghost Ingram once made grown men cross to the other side of the gym. Clifton didn't talk about it. When people asked about his eye, he told them glaucoma. Easier that way. Every morning, he walked to Brandon Park. He carried a canvas bag with 2 pairs of boxing gloves, a jump rope, and hand wraps so old the elastic had given up. He set up near the basketball courts under the oak tree where the roots had cracked the concrete into something that almost looked like a ring. The kids started showing up years ago. First Jamal, angry at everything. Then Aisha, faster than any of them. Then Jamari. Jamari was the one who kept Clifton coming back, small for his age, a stutter that turned simple words into obstacles, a father in prison since Jamari was little. His grandmother brought him to the park every morning before her shift at the hospital. She couldn't afford a babysitter. She couldn't afford much of anything. The first day, Jamari watched from behind the water fountain. The next day, he stood closer. Then Clifton held out a pair of gloves. You want to try? Jamari shook his head. That's okay, Clifton said. They'll be here tomorrow. It took some time. One morning, Jamari walked up, put his hands out, and let Clifton wrap them. His fingers were shaking. Clifton pretended not to notice. First thing, Clifton said, plant your feet like this. He showed Jamari the stance. Left foot forward, right foot back, weight balanced. The same stance his trainer Curtis Holloway had drilled into him decades ago in a basement gym in Philadelphia. Now hands up. Protect what matters. Jamari raised his fists. They barely reached his own chin. Good, Clifton said. Real good. Jamari smiled. First time his grandmother had seen that smile in months. Every morning after that, Jamari was there most days. He learned the jab first, then the cross, then how to slip a punch by moving his head just enough to the left. No more, no less. Clifton taught the way Curtis had taught him, patient, quiet, one thing at a time. He never raised his voice, never pushed too hard. When Jamari got frustrated and threw the gloves down, Clifton picked them up, set them on the bench, and said, They'll be here tomorrow. Jamari always came back. What Clifton was really teaching wasn't boxing. It was the thing underneath. The belief that your body could do what your mind was afraid of. That you could stand in front of something terrifying and not run. That the stutter, the small frame, the missing father, none of it decided who you were. The gloves just made it easier to believe. It was a morning in late September when Troy Langford showed up at Brandon Park for the first time. He rolled in with 4 friends, all of them in their early 20s. 2 had gym bags slung over their shoulders like props. 1 carried a speaker blasting music loud enough to rattle the chain-link fence around the basketball courts. Troy was the son of Councilman Victor Langford, a name that opened doors, closed complaints, and made police reports disappear. Troy had never worked a job, never needed to. He spent most of his time making content for his TikTok. Pranks mostly, the kind that targeted people who couldn't fight back, homeless men, old women at bus stops. He called it comedy. His many followers agreed. That morning, Clifton was teaching Jamari how to keep his guard up after throwing a jab. "Bring it back fast," he said. "The punch that hurts you is the one you don't see." Jamari nodded, threw the jab, pulled it back. Getting better every week. Troy spotted them from across the park. An old black man in dark glasses teaching a skinny kid to box with taped-up gloves on cracked concrete. "Yo, get this," Troy said to his friend with the phone. "This is gold." They walked over. Troy kicked the canvas bag. Gloves and hand wraps spilled across the ground. "What is this?" "A homeless gym?" Troy said. His friends laughed. The phone was already recording. Clifton didn't look up. He put his hand on Jamari's shoulder. "Pick up your gloves, son." "Hey, I'm talking to you." Troy stepped between them. "You got a permit for this? You can't just set up camp in a public park." Clifton looked at Troy with his one good eye, calm, measured, the way a man looks at something he's seen many times before. "We're just training," Clifton said quietly. "Training?" Troy grinned at the camera. "Training for what? The retirement home Olympics?" More laughter. Jamari's hands were shaking. Not from the cold. Clifton picked up the canvas bag, packed the gloves, took Jamari's hand. "Come on," he said. "We'll come back tomorrow." They walked away. Troy's laughter followed them all the way to the sidewalk. Clifton came back the next morning. So did Troy. This time, Troy brought a water bottle, not to drink. He waited until Clifton was showing Jamari how to pivot on the back foot, then walked up behind him and poured the entire bottle over Clifton's head. Water ran down Clifton's face, dripped off his chin, soaked through his collar, his dark glasses fogged up. He stood still. Troy's friend screamed with laughter. 2 phones out. One of them yelled, "Baptized him." "You're still here?" Troy said. "I thought I told you to crawl home." Clifton wiped his face with his sleeve, took off his glasses, cleaned them on his shirt, put them back on. "Jamari," he said quietly, "show me that pivot again." Jamari was frozen, eyes wide, lips pressed together so the stutter wouldn't escape. "It's okay," Clifton said. "Show me." Jamari pivoted. His feet were perfect. His hands were trembling. Troy watched them for some time, then got bored and left. But he posted the video that night. Caption: "Old blind man gets baptized in the park." Many likes by morning. Comments, most of them laughing. He came back the next time. This time he went straight for the canvas bag, pulled out Clifton's gloves. The old ones, cracked leather, laces frayed thin. The ones Clifton had owned for decades. The ones Evelyn had kept polished on the mantle like a trophy even after he stopped fighting. Troy held them up to the camera. "Look at these museum pieces." He tossed one to his friend. They played catch with them across the court while Clifton watched. "Give those back," Clifton said. His voice was even, but his jaw was tight. Or what? Troy dangled the glove over a trash can. You want it? Come get it, old man. Clifton didn't move. Troy dropped the glove in the trash, then the other one. There, Troy said. Now you match the rest of the garbage out here. Clifton said nothing. He turned to Jamari. Let's call it a day. That night, Clifton fished the gloves out of the trash under a streetlight. He sat on his porch and cleaned them with a damp cloth for some time. Rubbed the leather the way Evelyn used to. His hands were steady. His breathing was not. The following week, Troy brought spray paint. Clifton arrived as usual. Jamari was already waiting by the bench, their bench under the oak tree. But something was different. Jamari was standing next to it, not sitting. Clifton walked closer, saw it. Someone had sprayed the word blind across the seat in white paint, below it smaller. Go home. Jamari looked up at Clifton. Mr. Clifton, who did this? The stutter was back. Months of progress gone in 2 words. Clifton didn't answer. He sat down his bag. Sat on the bench anyway, right on top of the paint. Come on, he said. Let's work on your cross today. But Troy wasn't done. From Troy's perspective, this was the best content he'd ever made. The baptism video had outperformed everything on his page. His followers wanted more. Comments said things like, do it again, and make the old man cry. Troy's friend suggested they find someone else, but Troy refused. He liked Clifton specifically because Clifton never reacted. The non-reaction was the content. The silence was the joke. Troy also knew something the rest of the park didn't. His father was Councilman Victor Langford. Every cop in the precinct knew the name. Complaints had already been filed about Troy's behavior in the park. Both had been quietly moved to the bottom of the pile. One had disappeared entirely. Troy could do whatever he wanted, and he knew it. The neighbors knew it too. Mrs. Patterson watched from her window every morning. She saw the water. She saw the gloves in the trash. She saw the spray paint. She picked up the phone twice to call the precinct. Both times she put it down. What's the point? She told her daughter. His daddy runs the whole thing. Jamal's mother pulled him from the group after the baptism video went viral. I can't have my son around that. She said she didn't mean Clifton. She meant the danger that Clifton attracted by refusing to leave. Aisha's father did the same. Find somewhere else to play, he told her. Aisha cried for days. Within a short time, only Jamari was left. His grandmother didn't have the option of finding somewhere else. She worked long hours. The park was it. Every morning, Clifton showed up. Every morning, Jamari showed up. Every morning, Troy showed up. And every night, Clifton sat in his garage in the dark. The heavy bag hung from the ceiling beam, the same one he'd installed years ago when he still thought he might come back to the ring. He hadn't touched it in decades, but now his hands found it in the dark. Left jab, right cross, left hook. The bag swung, and he caught it. The rhythm came back like breathing. His right eye saw nothing. His hands remembered everything. He hit the bag for hours. He never told anyone. Not Jamari, not Mrs. Patterson, not the ghost of Evelyn, whose roses he watered every morning before walking to the park. Something in Clifton Ingram was waking up, and it scared him more than Troy ever could. Hold on. The whole block saw it. Nobody moved. Not because they didn't care, they just did the math. And that math left an old man and a young kid standing alone every morning. I don't know if I would have been any different. It was one evening when Clifton stopped pretending. He stood in the garage wrapping his hands the old way. 2 loops around the wrist, 3 across the knuckles. Pulled tight between each finger. Curtis Holloway's method. Decades and his hands still knew the pattern in the dark. He hit the bag different that night, not the slow, careful rhythm of a man remembering. This was sharp, precise combinations he hadn't thrown since his title fights. Jab, jab, cross, hook to the body, uppercut. The bag jumped on its chain. The ceiling beam groaned. His right eye was dead, but his left tracked the bag like a scope. His feet moved the way feet move when they've done thousands of rounds of shadow boxing. Muscle doesn't forget. Bone doesn't forget. The ghost doesn't forget. He stopped late, sat on the concrete floor, hands throbbing, breathing hard. He looked at the shoebox in the corner, Evelyn's scarf still wrapped around the belt inside. "I promised you," he whispered. "I know I promised you." The next morning in the park, Jamari asked the question, "Mr. Clifton, why don't you ever fight back?" Clifton looked at the boy, split lip from days earlier when Troy shoved him into the drinking fountain, still showing up every morning. "Because I hadn't decided yet," Clifton said. But he had. It happened on a morning when the air smelled like wet leaves and the sky couldn't decide between gray and blue. Clifton and Jamari were working on combinations. Jamari was getting good, real good. His jab had snapped now. His cross came straight, not looping. When he moved, his feet stayed under him the way Clifton had taught. Left foot forward, right foot back. Protect what matters. "That's it," Clifton said. "Now again, faster." Jamari threw the combo. Jab, cross, pull back. Clean again, jab, cross, pull back. Even cleaner. Clifton almost smiled. Months of mornings, and the kid was starting to look like a fighter. Not because he was big or strong, because he was precise. Because he listened. Because every morning he showed up and put his hands out and said nothing and let Clifton wrap them. That was the morning Troy Langford decided to make his masterpiece. He showed up with 5 friends instead of 4. New guy had a ring light clipped to his phone. Professional setup. Troy had announced on his TikTok the night before. "Tomorrow we finish this live at Brandon Park. Don't miss it." Many people were watching the stream when they walked through the gate. Troy crossed the basketball court and headed straight for the oak tree. Clifton saw him coming. He put his hand on Jamari's shoulder. "Stay behind me," he said. "Well, well," Troy said loud enough for the stream. "The Blind Museum is still open." He looked directly into the camera. "You guys watching? Watch this." Troy reached down and snatched the gloves off Jamari's hands. Jamari stumbled backward. "Give those back," Clifton said. "Shut up." Troy tossed the gloves to his friend. Then he turned to Jamari. "You know what your problem is, kid. You got nobody. Your daddy's in jail, your mama's gone, and your boxing coach can't even see straight." He bent down to Jamari's level. "You're nothing, just like him." Jamari's lip was trembling. He didn't say a word. The stutter had swallowed everything. "Leave the boy alone," Clifton said. His voice was low, the kind of low that sounds like a warning if you know what to listen for. Troy didn't. "Or what?" Troy straightened up, looked at the camera, grinned. Then he shoved Jamari. Not a small shove. Both hands full force into a young boy's chest. Jamari flew backward, hit the edge of the concrete where the tree roots had cracked it, and went down hard. His head bounced off the ground. Blood appeared on his forehead. A thin line at first, then it ran down past his eyebrow and into his eye. Jamari didn't cry. He just lay there looking up at Clifton with one eye open and one eye full of blood like a mirror. The stream had more viewers now. Clifton looked down at Jamari, looked at the blood, looked at the boy's hands, still curled into fists, even on the ground, still in guard position, still protecting what matters. Something shifted behind Clifton's eyes. Not anger, something older than anger, something that had been sleeping in a garage for decades and was now fully, completely awake. Clifton took off his dark glasses, folded them, set them on the bench. He turned to Troy. "You sure about that, son?" The same words from the park bench, but the voice was different now. There was no trembling, no patience, no old man. Troy laughed. "What are you going to do, Grandpa? Bleed on me?" He threw a punch, a lazy wide right hand. The kind of punch someone throws when they've never been hit back. All arm, no foundation, no guard. Clifton slipped it just enough to the left, no more, no less. The movement was so fast that Troy's fist hit nothing but air. His momentum carried him forward, off balance. His eyes went wide. That was the first time fear touched his face. Clifton's left jab landed before Troy could reset, straight down the center, clean. The sound was sharp, not a thud, a crack. Troy's head snapped back. His nose shifted. Troy staggered, put his hands up. Too late. Too high. Clifton's right cross came underneath into the solar plexus. Every molecule of air left Troy's lungs in one sound. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Then the uppercut. Clifton planted his back foot, rotated his hips the way Curtis Holloway had taught him in the basement in Philadelphia, and drove his right fist upward from his waist. It connected under Troy's chin with the precision of a man who had thrown that exact punch thousands of times in the ring, in the garage, in his sleep. Troy Langford left the ground, both feet, just for a second. Then he hit the concrete face first and didn't move. 3 punches. Decades of silence, broken in moments. The park was quiet. Many people on the stream were quiet. Troy's friends were quiet. The one with the ring light hadn't moved. The phone was still recording. Clifton stood over Troy. His hands were shaking now, not from exhaustion, from the flood of something he had spent decades trying to bury. He looked at his fists, opened them, closed them, opened them again. Then he turned around, walked to Jamari, and knelt down. He pressed his palm against the cut on the boy's forehead. Gentle. The same hands that had just put a young man on the ground were now holding a boy's face like it was made of glass. "You okay?" he asked. Jamari nodded. His eyes were wide, but not afraid. Something else. "Mr. Clifton," he whispered. "You can fight." Clifton picked the boy up, set him on the bench, wrapped his forehead with the old hand wraps from the canvas bag. Then he sat beside him and put his arm around his shoulders. He didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. Across the park, Troy Langford was being helped to his feet by his friends. His nose was bleeding. His jaw hung slightly open on the left side. The ring light was still on. The stream had been recording the entire time. The clip of the 3 punches was extracted within hours. It spread rapidly. The comments came in waves. "Who is this old man? That footwork, that's not a street fighter. Somebody ID this guy." The hashtag started small. But by evening, it had been replaced by something else. Something that would change everything. And somewhere in a living room across town, a retired sports journalist named Raymond Whitaker watched the clip many times. He paused it at the uppercut, zoomed in on the footwork, the pivot, the hip rotation. He knew that technique. He had seen it before. Decades ago, in a ring from a fighter they called the Ghost. Raymond Whitaker picked up his phone. Councilman Victor Langford saw the video that morning. His chief of staff sent it with one line. "This is your son." Victor watched it twice. Then he closed his office door and made calls. The first was to the police chief, a man who owed his appointment to Victor's endorsement. The second was to the district attorney's office. The third was to a media consultant who had managed his campaigns. The fourth was to his personal attorney. Soon, Clifton Ingram had been charged with aggravated assault. The arrest happened early one morning. 2 officers knocked on Clifton's door. He opened it in the same clothes he wore to the park. Canvas jacket, dark glasses, the bag of gloves sitting by the door, ready for the morning session. "Mr. Ingram, you're under arrest for the assault of Troy Langford." Clifton didn't resist. He set the bag down on the porch, took off his glasses, and held out his wrists. Mrs. Patterson was watching from her window. She saw them put the handcuffs on the older man at sunrise. She called her daughter and cried. Victor Langford held a press conference that day, suit pressed, American flag pin on his lapel. He stood behind the podium at City Hall with Troy beside him, jaw wired shut, neck brace, arm in a sling. The camera loved it. A father protecting his injured son. The image was perfect. "My son was violently attacked by an unhinged individual in a public park," Victor said. Troy suffered injuries. This was not self-defense. This was a brutal, unprovoked assault by someone who clearly has a history of violence. He paused, looked down at his notes, looked back up with practiced grief. "I'm asking the DA to pursue the maximum sentence. No one, regardless of age, has the right to put their hands on another person. We are a city of laws. No reporter asked about Jamari. No reporter asked about the harassment that preceded the 3 punches. Victor's media consultant had sent the press a carefully edited clip starting the moment Clifton took off his glasses. Everything before that had been cut. The narrative was set. Cable news ran the clip with a new headline: "Elderly man viciously attacks youth in park." They slowed down the uppercut. They zoomed in on Troy hitting the concrete. They showed Troy's hospital photo. Swollen face, neck brace, tubed, one anchor called Clifton a ticking time bomb hiding in a public space. They did not show Jamari. They did not mention the blood on a young boy's forehead. They did not play the earlier part of the stream where Troy harassed, humiliated, and shoved a child. That part of the footage had been quietly filed as unverified by the Langford legal team. The comment sections turned. Not all of them, but enough. That old man could have killed him. There's no excuse for that level of violence. He needs to be in a facility. Why was he even around children? The people who had cheered the champion on earlier were now sharing concern pieces. A petition appeared online. "Remove dangerous individuals from Brandon Park." Clifton was released on bail soon after. His public defender, a young woman named Sarah Collins, who had many active cases, told him the situation was serious. "The DA is pushing for felony assault. Councilman Langford is pressuring the judge. They want to make an example." "An example of what?" Clifton asked. "Of you," she said. "They're saying you're dangerous, that you use trained fighting skills against an unarmed person. That makes it aggravated." Clifton sat in her office and said nothing for a long time. Then he asked, "What about the boy? What about what Troy did to Jamari?" Sarah looked at her desk. "The Langford family hasn't been charged with anything. Troy's statement says he was trying to mediate a dispute when you attacked him without warning. That's a lie. I know, but they have a councilman, a media team, and a DA who plays golf with Victor Langford. We have a viral video that many now think shows an old man beating up a kid. He's young. On camera with a neck brace, he looks younger. That's all that matters." A restraining order was filed. Clifton was prohibited from going near Brandon Park. That evening, someone threw a rock through Clifton's front window. No note, no face, just a fist-sized hole in the glass and shards on Evelyn's rug. Clifton swept them up in silence. He taped a piece of cardboard over the hole and sat on the couch in the dark. He couldn't go to the park. He couldn't see Jamari. He couldn't do the only thing that had given his morning's meaning since Evelyn died. The canvas bag sat by the door, like a promise he could no longer keep. Jamari's grandmother called that night. Her voice was thin. "Mr. Ingram, I don't know what to do. Jamari won't eat. He won't talk. He just sits by the window and looks at the park. He wrapped his own hands this morning. Just sat there with his fists up, hitting the air. Tell him I'll be back, Clifton said. Jamari's grandmother didn't press. The next morning, Clifton woke out of habit, got dressed, picked up the bag, walked to the front door, stopped, set the bag down, sat on the porch. He did the same thing the next morning, and the next. On one morning, he found Jamari sitting on his front steps. The boy had walked a long distance alone before sunrise to find him. His hands were already wrapped badly, lopsided, the tape bunching between his fingers. The way a young boy wraps his own hands when his coach isn't there. Mr. Clifton, Jamari said, I don't want to stop. Clifton looked at the boy, split lips still healing, dark circles under his eyes. But his fists were up. Guard position protecting what matters. Clifton knelt down, unwrapped the boy's hands, rewrapped them properly, 2 loops around the wrist, 3 across the knuckles, pulled tight between each finger. Curtis Holloway's method, the same way he'd been doing it for decades. We're not stopping, he said. They trained on Clifton's porch that morning. No oak tree, no cracked concrete ring, no canvas bag of gear, just an old man and a boy, and a pair of gloves that had survived everything the world had thrown at them. They took his park, threw a rock through his window, and a young kid walked far in the dark just to say, Don't quit. I'm not going to lie. That broke something in me. Who shows up for you like that? Raymond Whitaker had covered boxing for decades. Ringside at major venues. He had watched many professional fights in person and written about them. He knew fighters the way a piano tuner knows pianos, not by looking at them, but by listening to the way they moved. He watched the Brandon Park clip many times. His wife asked him to come to dinner. He didn't hear her. It was the uppercut that haunted him. Not the power, though the power was real. It was the setup, the way the old man planted his back foot at exactly the right angle, the way his hips rotated before his arm moved, the way the fist traveled from the waist, not the shoulder. That wasn't a street fighter's uppercut. That was a trained technique. A specific technique. One he had seen exactly once before in his career. Decades ago, in a ring from a fighter they called the Ghost. Raymond pulled up his archive. He found the folder. Clifton the Ghost Ingram. Wins. Knockouts. Middleweight champion. Then nothing. The record just stopped. No retirement announcement, no farewell fight. One day he was the most dangerous middleweight in the division. The next day he was gone. Raymond remembered the rumors. An underground fight, an unlicensed bout, serious injury, but no one ever confirmed it. The boxing commission had no record. The promoter was never identified. Clifton Ingram simply vanished, and the sport moved on. Raymond looked at the viral clip again, paused it at the moment Clifton took off his dark glasses, zoomed in. The right eye, clouded, unfocused, dead, a detached retina. The kind of injury that comes from a specific type of impact, the kind that ends careers. He picked up the phone and called a source at the State Boxing Commission. I need everything you have on unlicensed bouts. Middleweight division. Anything involving an eye injury. The source called back. There's nothing in the official record, but I found something in the complaint files. A sealed report. An anonymous complaint was filed about an underground fight organized at a warehouse. The complaint names a promoter, a guy named Victor Langford. Raymond Whitaker sat down slowly. He read the name again. Then he looked at the press conference footage. Councilman Victor Langford, American flag pin. We are a city of laws. The same man. Raymond drove to Oakfield Road. He knocked on Clifton's door. Clifton opened it, dark glasses on, cardboard still taped over the broken window behind him. "Mr. Ingram, my name is Raymond Whitaker. I'm a sports journalist. I covered your title fight decades ago." Clifton didn't move, didn't speak. Just stood in the doorway like a man deciding whether to close the door or step through it. "I know who you are," Raymond said. "I know what happened to your eye, and I think I know who did it." Clifton looked at him for a long time, then he stepped aside and let him in. They sat in the living room for hours. Clifton told him everything: the warehouse, the heavyweight who outweighed him, the illegal elbow, waking up in the hospital with one eye gone, the promoter who vanished overnight, the career that ended with no press conference, no farewell, no explanation, just silence. "I didn't know his name back then," Clifton said. "He was just a voice behind a curtain. I never saw his face. His name was Victor Langford," Raymond said. Clifton was quiet. He looked at the shoebox on the shelf, Evelyn's scarf still wrapped around the belt. His hands were flat on his knees. "And his son?" Clifton said slowly. "His son is the one in the park." "Yes," Clifton closed his eyes. "One good, one dead. Both shut now." Raymond spent the next days building the story. He pulled county records, business filings, property deeds. Victor Langford had been running an unlicensed boxing promotion out of a warehouse. He organized underground bouts. No referees, no doctors, no commission oversight. Fighters were paid in cash, no medical coverage, no liability. Clifton, the ghost. Ingram fought in one of those bouts. His opponent landed an illegal elbow that detached Clifton's retina. There was no ringside doctor. By the time Clifton reached the hospital, the damage was permanent. Victor Langford shut down the operation soon after, changed his name on the business filings, moved into real estate, then local politics, then city council. The man who kept the city safe had once run the operation that destroyed a champion's career and left him half blind. And now his son had cornered that same man in a park, had poured water on his head, had thrown his gloves in the trash, had shoved a young boy onto concrete. And when the champion finally fought back with 3 punches, the councilman had used every ounce of his power to bury him again. Raymond Whitaker published the story. Front page of the Tribune's website, the headline, "The Ghost of Brandon Park. How a city councilman destroyed a boxing champion. Twice." The article included everything: the sealed complaint, the warehouse address, the shell company, the medical records, side-by-side photos, Clifton at his prime holding the middleweight belt, and Clifton sitting on a park bench with spray paint behind him. The uppercut from the viral clip frame by frame matched against footage from his title fight. Identical technique, same fighter, decades apart. Victor Langford read the article that morning in his kitchen. His wife said his face went white. He called his attorney. The attorney didn't pick up. He called his chief of staff. The chief of staff had already resigned by email soon after the article went live. The article spread widely. The hashtag came back, but this time it carried a different weight. This time people understood. The old man in the park wasn't just a fighter. He was a man who had been robbed of everything by the same family that was now trying to rob him again. The DA's office issued a statement. In light of new evidence, the charges against Clifton Ingram are under review. The restraining order had been suspended. The State Attorney General's office had opened an investigation into Councilman Victor Langford. Sarah Collins, Clifton's public defender, called him at home. "Mr. Ingram, have you seen the news?" "No," Clifton said. "My TV's been off. The charges are being dropped. The DA just announced it, and the AG is looking into the councilman. All of it. The underground fights, the sealed complaint, the obstruction, everything." Clifton was quiet for a long time. "Mr. Ingram, are you there?" I'm here, he said. Is it safe to go back to the park? Sarah laughed. It was the first time she'd laughed in weeks. Yes, she said. It's safe. Clifton hung up the phone. He walked to the front door, picked up the canvas bag. The gloves were inside. Cracked leather, frayed laces, decades of silence stitched into every seam. He walked to the porch, looked at the cardboard still taped over the broken window, looked at Evelyn's roses, blooming, but blooming all the same. Then he called Jamari's grandmother. Tell him to meet me at the park tomorrow under the oak tree. The investigation moved fast. The State Attorney General's office subpoenaed Victor Langford's financial records. They had the shell company filings, the warehouse lease, and the bank statements showing cash payments to unlicensed fighters. Fighters, no medical coverage, no insurance, no records filed with the State Boxing Commission. Several of those fighters had suffered career-ending injuries. Clifton was one of them. The other had never come forward. Victor Langford was formally charged with racketeering, operating an unlicensed sporting event, and obstruction of justice. The last one for the complaints about Troy that had been buried. The sealed complaint was unsealed. His name was on every page. Victor held no press conference this time, no American flag pin, no podium. His attorney released a short statement. Councilman Langford denies all charges and looks forward to his day in court. He had resigned from the city council. Not voluntarily, the council voted to remove him. The man who had sat in the chair of public safety was escorted out of City Hall by the same officers who had once buried complaints on his behalf. Troy Langford was charged separately. Assault on a minor for shoving Jamari, harassment, criminal mischief for the spray paint, and property damage. His TikTok account was suspended. His followers watched his last video, the live stream from the park, get taken down by the platform. The comments section before it disappeared was filled with support for the champion and justice for Clifton. Troy's friends were charged as accessories. The one with the ring light deleted his account. It didn't matter. The footage was already everywhere. The boxing community found Clifton. It started with a phone call from the World Boxing Association, then the International Boxing Hall of Fame, then fighters active and retired who had grown up hearing whispers about the ghost, the middleweight who vanished, the champion with no farewell fight. They had all watched the Brandon Park clip. They had all read Raymond Whitaker's article, and they all wanted the same thing: to acknowledge what had been stolen. The WBA issued a formal statement recognizing Clifton the Ghost Ingram's career record and condemning the circumstances that had ended it. The statement called the underground bout a criminal act that robbed the sport of one of its finest competitors. Former middleweight champions recorded video messages. One of them said something that went viral on its own. I always wondered who the ghost was. Now I know, and I wish I could have fought him. I think he would have beaten me. Raymond Whitaker published a follow-up piece the next week. This one was different. No investigation, no records, just a profile. He spent a morning on Clifton's porch, watching him teach Jamari. Back on the porch, the canvas bag between them, the old gloves on the railing. Do you feel vindicated? Raymond asked. Clifton thought about it. I feel tired, he said, but the good kind. The neighbors came back first. Mrs. Patterson brought a casserole and an apology. She stood on Clifton's porch with tears running down her face and said, I should have called. I should have done something. Clifton took the casserole. You're here now, he said. That counts? Jamal's mother brought him back to the group. So did Aisha's father. Within a short time, Clifton had many kids showing up every morning. Then more. Parents started staying to watch. Some of them brought chairs. One brought a folding table with water bottles and orange slices, like it was a real gym. The city council, now missing one member, passed a resolution. Brandon Park would receive funding for a permanent community boxing program, new equipment, a covered training area near the oak tree, licensed coaches, free for all kids. They asked Clifton what to name it. He didn't hesitate. The Evelyn Ingram boxing program, he said, after my wife. She's the reason I kept my hands down for decades, and she's the reason I finally put them back up. Clifton Ingram walked back into Brandon Park one morning. Canvas bag over his shoulder, dark glasses on, new ones paid for by a boxing fan who had mailed them with a handwritten note for the ghost. Welcome back. Jamari was already there, sitting on the bench under the oak tree, hands wrapped, fists up, waiting. Clifton set the bag down, looked at the bench. The spray paint was gone. Someone had sanded it clean and repainted it. A small brass plaque had been screwed into the backrest. It read, "This bench belongs to Clifton Ingram and everyone he teaches." He didn't know who put it there. He never found out. "Mr. Clifton," Jamari said. He was smiling. The stutter was still there, but the smile was bigger than the stutter now. "You ready?" Clifton asked. "Yes, sir. Show me your jab." Jamari threw it. Snap, straight, pull back, clean again. Snap, cleaner again. The morning light came through the oak leaves and landed on the cracked concrete like a spotlight. The other kids arrived one by one. Jamal first, then Aisha, then new faces. Kids Clifton had never seen before. Some came with their parents, some came alone. One boy walked a long distance because he saw the video and wanted to learn how to stand like that. Clifton taught them all the same way, one thing at a time. Plant your feet, hands up, protect what matters. The Evelyn Ingram boxing program launched. The city provided heavy bags, speed bags, jump ropes, and a covered pavilion next to the oak tree. 2 licensed coaches volunteered, both former competitors who had followed the story. Clifton wasn't technically a coach on paper. He didn't have the certification, but every morning he was there, and every morning the real coaches stepped back and let him work. Nobody questioned it. Nobody needed to. Raymond Whitaker visited one more time. He brought a photographer. The photo that ran with the final article became widely shared. Clifton Ingram, older, kneeling on cracked concrete, wrapping a young boy's hands. One good eye looking down at the tape, one dead eye facing the camera. Behind them, kids in a line, fists up, guard position, learning to protect what matters. The headline was simple. The ghost found his way home. Victor Langford's trial was scheduled later. Troy Langford pleaded no contest to the assault and harassment charges. He was sentenced to community service and a restraining order from Brandon Park. His TikTok never came back. His followers moved on. The internet forgot him the way the internet forgets everyone who isn't worth remembering. But nobody forgot Clifton. Months after the program launched, Jamari entered his first amateur boxing match, a youth exhibition at the community center. He was small, lighter than his opponent, and so nervous his hands were shaking in the locker room. Clifton wrapped them, 2 loops around the wrist, 3 across the knuckles. Pull tight between each finger. "You scared?" Clifton asked. Jamari nodded. "Good," Clifton said. "Scared means you care. Now plant your feet." Jamari walked into the ring. Left foot forward, right foot back, hands up. He won. A clean cross to the body that dropped his opponent to one knee. The crowd stood. Jamari's grandmother screamed so loud, the referee turned around. Jamari looked across the ring at Clifton. Clifton nodded once. That was enough. Outside the community center, Evelyn's roses were blooming. Clifton noticed them on the walk home. He stopped, touched one of the petals, smiled. Then he kept walking. If this story moved you, drop a comment and tell me who's the person in your life who kept showing up for you even when nobody else did. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one.